Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar, Introduction into the VPS, the Visual Production Scheduler for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. I am Martin Karlovic, CEO and co-owner of NETRONIC, and I'm the host for this webinar. Here at NETRONIC, I'm responsible for strategy, innovation, go-to-market, and I'm our company's driving force behind everything that we do for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central and Dynamics NAV. And today, I'm really happy to introduce the Visual Production Scheduler to you. I will talk about like housekeeping details of this webinar in a minute, so you recognize that you're all on mute, but nevertheless, this is not like we want you as our customers or partners to be, but we want to engage with you, we want to communicate with you, we want to interact with you. So if you have any question, if you have an idea how we can make our products or how we can make us as a company better, then please, please, please reach out to me, send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn and share with me your thoughts there. I'm really, really happy to discuss and to engage with everybody. And please, also, I'm hosting a podcast which is called the Business Central Manufacturing Show. And this is an ongoing activity. It is ongoing fun to me. I learn every time I interview great people from the Business Central community, either partner or customers. We will always chat like 30 minutes about Business Central and manufacturing. It's quite casual, but it's quite good conversation that is happening and quite both entertaining and educational for the listeners. So if you have something to share on Business Central and manufacturing, I'm pretty sure that you have something to share on Business Central and manufacturing because you decided to join me here for this webinar, then please reach out to me and I will be very happy to welcome you as my next guest to my podcast. So with this, let's turn to the topic of this webinar. Or before we turn to the topic of this webinar, a few housekeeping details. So this today, the webinar is called Introduction Into, and if the webinar is called Introduction Into, then this is an introductory webinar. So this is a beginner's level webinar. Please don't expect me to show you all the bells and whistles and everything that makes the VPS, but this is really an introduction into the idea of the product and into the product. We are running frequently more advanced level webinars where we take a deeper dive into certain topics, but today this is a beginner's level webinar. Of course, we record this session and we will make the recording available to you afterwards. If you have a question, please use the chat function of this GoToWebinar software to ask a question. And most likely today, I will not answer your question live in this call, but we will answer your question via email. So expect to receive an email from either me or one of my colleagues, either today or latest one day after this webinar, so tomorrow, because we made the experience that especially those Q&A sessions within these webinars run quite long and become quite specific, and people tended also not to ask questions because they had specific questions that they wanted to didn't want the others to get involved with. So for these introductory level webinars, if you have a question, feel free to ask them. Ask them via email, ask them to me on LinkedIn, or ask them here on the chat box, and I promise you get an answer within 24 hours. And with this, let's turn to the Visual Production Scheduler, the VPS for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. And like our marketing words to talk about the VPS is that the Visual Production Scheduler is the drag and drop scheduling front end to the standard manufacturing module of Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. So this is the one, like the 20 words marketing phrase for the Visual Production Scheduler, but from time to time, I have friends that ask me, hey, let's explain this in plain words, please don't use marketing language. And when I get asked, hey, what is visual production scheduling all about, then typically I say the following to somebody who is at least a bit familiar with Business Central. And this is like, and if you are in Business Central, or if you're a bit familiar with Navision, then you know how manufacturers that use either Navision or Business Central struggle with understanding the full picture of their production schedule. And I'm pretty sure that you also know that they lack transparency and literally get lost in all the Business Central tables and menus that contain production order information, production order line information, production order routing information, production order routing line posting information, capacity ledger information, capacity need information, shop calendar information, and so on and so forth. All this information that are puzzle pieces to the production schedule is scattered around in a lot of tables, and it is hard for the typical manufacturer running Navision or running Business Central to gain transparency of these data when it comes to scheduling. There are a lot of cool tools on the market for reporting, for looking backwards, like Power BI and some other reporting stuff. But looking forward, looking ahead, what is going to come and how I will build this is really hard to get transparently provided within Business Central. And instead of letting customers do what we would call the production order and machine sequencing in Excel, which still a lot of customers actually do when they work with Navision or Business Central, we integrate a drag and drop production schedule into Business Central. So we collect all these data that I mentioned, we collect it, we make it visual, and we let users change it by drag and drop. And this is what we call visual production scheduling. It gives you, or it gives your customers, transparency, understanding, and control. And it helps you to get answers that are really hard to get if you wouldn't work with visual production scheduling. And questions are like, how can I see my production schedule visually? How can I see it at one glance? And how can I do it in Business Central? Just try to imagine the report that you would need to build to see all your production order routing lines, all your production order routing line operations, all the due dates, all the capacity needs, and so on and so forth in one report. Almost impossible, and this is made possible with visual production scheduling. Another answer you get from it is that, okay, we all know that Business Central plans with infinite capacity. Fair enough, and a tool like MRP or MPS typically works with infinite capacity. There is no problem with this, but if you just plan your production hours with infinite capacity, then at some point of time, you also need to know, hey, for which work or machine center does this create an issue? Where, given the current demand coming from production orders for my machine and work centers, given the current demand, where will I run into a capacity shortfall? This is information that you hardly get from Business Central out of the box, and this is information that you get on your fingertips from a tool like the Visual Production Scheduler. So the Visual Production Scheduler mirrors the business logic of Business Central. It also works with infinite capacity. However, it gives you visualization to see where you're violating or where you're exceeding the existing capacity and where you will run into capacity shortfalls based on your current, in quotes, infinite schedule that you have. Another answer you get from visual production scheduling is like, hey, I have to shift a production order, right? This happens, things change. And what we see is a lot of our customers are make to order or hybrid make to order, make to stock manufacturers. And if you make to order, if you work against a not so stable customer demand, then things change. So I always say with our customers, the only constant is change. And if things change, then you will have to move production orders. But if you have to shift a production order, what the hell is the impact? And you will see this from the visual production schedule, because it does not give you a picture, but it gives you a picture that you can change, to stay in this analogy. So it gives you a picture of your production schedule, but then with drag and drop, you can change that picture. And if you change it, you see the impact of the change you're making. So the VPS gives you and your customers a certain difference and a certain edge compared to the vanilla Business Central manufacturing. And this is, first, it integrates into and with Business Central. So other than other tools out there, the VPS has no data interface and no interface to outside servers. It lives completely within Business Central. So the data stays within Business Central. This data stays saved. There is no, Business Central and the Microsoft Cloud, these are most like, they belong to the most secure ERP system in the world. And when we look at Microsoft's cloud security standards, they are incredibly high. And so why would we, as a small German company, take data out of this very, very safe environment and put them into a separate server and into a separate environment to schedule them and then send them back and forth? I mean, there would be at least three entry points to data breaches. This is on the way to our server, on our server, and on the way back. So we don't have this. We fully integrate into and with Dynamics 365 Business Central. And this makes the VPS different from a lot of tools that are out there. Then, of course, it gives you a visualization, and it gives you a visualization in three ways. It gives you a view on your capacity utilization. It gives you a view on your production orders and where they are. And it gives you a histogram view, which shows your capacity load chart in one glance. And you have the capability, of course, to do some drag and drop stuff. So you can change the schedule. All the schedule information that you have, they are presented to you at your fingertips. You don't have to search them in multiple tables and multiple data sources, but they all are at one glance. With this, the VPS makes Business Central manufacturing visual and understandable. So in my point of view, in my humble point of view, one of the best use cases for the VPS is actually in the early phases of implementing the manufacturing module and the manufacturing capabilities. So if you are new to Business Central, or if you have customers who are new to Business Central, then when you implement manufacturing, and implementing manufacturing is quite complex, and if you've gone through this process, you know what I'm talking about. You have to set up the items, you have to set up routings, the bombs, you have to set up the planning parameters and see how this all plays together. You have the production order statuses, and you have a lot of like moving parameters and moving things to take care of. And we see a big value of the VPS, that it makes all these things just visual. So if you're in process of implementing Business Central, use the VPS to make this visual, to make this understandable. Change the routing that you set up and see what this actually means. Look at this visually. And there are multiple other examples like this. Make the routing on workcenter level and see how this looks and feels and how you can deal with this, or make the routing down to machine center level and see how this looks and feels, and if this provides to you all the informational value that you need to have. The VPS helps you to integrate operational scheduling, and with operational scheduling, I mean the production order and machine sequencing into your AIP, and hence it helps you to get this quite critical process actually away from Excel. And most of the companies that come from any system to Business Central, or that haven't had any ERP system before, did and do some scheduling on Excel. And nothing against Excel. Excel is most likely the most powerful software in the world, but Excel is not properly integrated into Business Central, and actually Excel is not a proper tool for scheduling, because it is hard to maintain and to manage all the dependencies that you have within Excel. So if you want to move away from an Excel-based island solution into your ERP system, then VPS is definitively a tool to help you get there. And then if you start planning and scheduling integrated into your ERP system. And if you do this visually with the VPS, then this actually can be an effective first step into powerful and automatic scheduling. And by the way, we also have another product that is called VAPS, so Visual Advanced Production Scheduler. And this is the next level or the next step of product that comes with a lot more automation. The VPS is drag and drop scheduling. The VAPS comes with some automatism. Um, and so with making things visual, with understanding your schedule, with having transparency and with having control, then you're prepared, in my experience, to make the next step into a more advanced scheduling. But when it comes to scheduling, make sure you walk before you run. So typically for many of you guys, the VPS is the really good first step into getting away from an Excel-based scheduling to getting to a scheduling within your ERP system. And then from there, potentially making the next step with more advanced scheduling logic and with more automation. And with this, I'd like to move actually away from PowerPoint and show you the VPS and introduce you to the VPS. So let's quickly refresh this page. And then I'm getting into my Business Central environment where I have the VPS installed. So here in this case, I have the VPS installed to sit here on my road center. If you haven't, if you have the VPS installed, and by the way, you can get the VPS from AppSource. So you can just download it and start testing it. It's plug and play installation. It doesn't require a lot. It requires production orders, routings, machine center work centers. You can work with machine centers, and it requires shop calendar, and that you've rolled out the shop calendar to your work centers and machine centers if you have them. And then it's plug and play installation, and you can look at your data visually and start working with them. So if you install the VPS from AppSource, depending on your road center, you will see it here, or if not, then you just use the search, and then you see the visual production scheduler, and then you can go also here and open it from here. I now do it from here, and I open it from here. And when you open the visual production scheduler, it, for a given period of time, collects the information that I spoke about before from various tables and provides them to you in a visual way. So actually now my VPS here opened in what I call, or what we call, the capacity view. So the capacity view shows me my current production schedule by, on the first level, and let's collapse this. On the first level, these are my work center groups. So I have 3 work center groups: machining, finishing, and subcontracting. And then on the next level, we have work centers. So in finishing, I have the work centers assembly and quality control. And as there is no triangle here, you see I don't have any machine centers in assembly and quality control. However, in my machining area, I decided to be a bit more granular. So I have work centers, like I have a work center drilling, milling and turning, sawing and welding. And then under each work center, I have a couple of machine centers. Like you see, I have 2 drills, I have 2 mills, I have a turning machine, and I've combined milling and turning machine for welding workplaces. And this is how my sample company here is set up. The work date in my sample company here is the 17th of January 23, and this is represented by this red line. So this is literally the today line. So today is the 17th of January 23. I can zoom in and zoom out, so I can apply here a weekly view. I can see, okay, what's happening this calendar week. And then I see, okay, on my drills, I'm pretty busy. I have full schedule with a lot of production orders here. My milling and turning quite busy, but with some free capacity here on the milling 1, here on milling 2, on the combined milling 2. So I have some free capacity here. The saw is fully busy this week, and I see that I have a decent utilization on a welding machine, and also here some stuff to do in assembly and quality control. And then from here I can just move a week ahead and see the next week and the next week, or I can zoom out again and look at a longer time frame. I will come back to this capacity view in a minute and also tell you what these bubbles, these boxes mean. And in order to explain this a little bit better, I switch actually the view. So we see that we have this light blue thing here a little bit further out in week 8. So this is end of February, beginning of March. And first of all, now I would like to know more about this guy here, about this production order. And you see now that I selected it, I clicked on it. Let's say select, I see actually the routing. So I see that I need to drill it first, then mill it, then turn it, then saw it, then weld it, and then goes to the assembly, and finally to the quality control. So if I want to get more details about this, I can first double click on it. Then I get the production order as I have set it up in Business Central. So very simple production order. It's an item production order for just one item that I manufacture here. So I have one production order line, and from the production order line, I have those 7 routing lines that we looked at, 5 of them being on a machine center and 2 of them being on a work center. Then I can close this, and in another way to look at this more is on a right mouse click. I can say show the operation. This is an operation in the what we call the production order view. I could also go here, NETRONIC, and switch to what we call the production order view, or I can go from action to view and select the production order view. If I do it from here, so not with the menus, but with the right click menu, then this operation from where I did this is already selected. So it is blinking, it is highlighted, and the production order here is already expanded so that I see this operation. So now let's look at this, this other view, and maybe we do it first like this. So here, and I collapse this again here in what we call the production order view, we look at my production orders and I look at them by status. So I have the planned production order, I have the firm planned production, I have the release production order, and every line here equals one production order. So this one production order we looked at, the 101232, this production order, which has a starting date 20th of February and ending date 27th of February, a due date on the 28th of February. These information are shown here visually, starting date, ending date, due date. So starting date 20th, ending date 27th, due date 28th. So this information is here shown visually like this. And then if I go one line further, I have the production order line, and you know there could be multiple lines here. So now if I expand this, it looks as I've duplicate information, but this is just the one production order line that I have here. And then from the production order line, and if I would have more lines, I would have seen also more lines on the in the visual Gantt chart. And then from the line, I can go into the routing. And so I can enhance this more and look at the routing. So now, if we look at this view, you might rightfully say, well, this is rubbish because it shows the least relevant information on the top. Because when I'm running a production, I want to see my released production orders first, then I want to see the planned, and then the firm planned, and then the planned. So you're right. So what you can do is here on a right mouse click, you can sort the order, and then you can say, okay, I want to sort by the status. I want to sort by the status number. And if you do this descending, then you have the release production orders first, then the firm planned, and then the planned. And then you might say, okay, but you know, I want to see that production order at the top that has the due date, which is closest to now. So right now, this is sorted. The production orders are sorted by the production order number. So I see first the production order that I put first into the system, but I can sort this here by due date. I want to see a production order field. I want to go by due date. I want to go descending, no, ascending, and then I have the one that is released with the closest due date to today up here, and then you see like how the schedule is built. And now let's actually look first at this production order, which has no impact on the schedule, what we can do with the schedule. So I configured my VPS in a way, and you see, by the way, you see we have all the data on one screen. You can drill down and you can sort this. You can hide the firm plan production orders, and just have the release and the plan, or you can also hide the plan. So you can look at the information that you want, and you can drill down from the production order into production order line into production order routing line. You see all those information. By the way, while when I expanded the production order line and started to look at the routing line, you saw these gray and white areas in the background. They represent the shop calendar that you have. So here in my sample company, all those machining work and machine centers have been set up in a simplified 2-shift calendar. So I'm working from 8 to 11 p.m., whereas assembly and quality control, which is more manual work, were set up to work from 8 to 4. So 1 shift and 2 shift. And we of course take this into account. So now you see that I have these routings, and when I say we take those into this work and those shop calendar into account, when I move this here to not start on this Monday afternoon, but when I say, okay, it's better for me to start this at the beginning of the next shift, then I can just drag it and drop it to here. I can drag it and drop it. I should be able to drag it and drop it to here. I'm not sure why this is interesting behavior. Let me quickly refresh this. This is demo effect. I tried this the whole day and now it's not working. Fun thing. Let's go back to where I was. We have this one here, and I move it to the next day, and now it's moved to the next day. And you saw when I moved it, the bar became shorter because we don't have this interruption in here, which comes from the work free time. So I can also on the right mouse click, restore to initial values. It goes back here, longer bar, so it takes longer gross time. The net time, of course, is the same. And when I start this at the beginning of the next day, the bar becomes shorter. So now when I change this actually, you see it got this gray dot, and this gray dot means I changed it here in the visual production scheduler, but not yet in the production order. The routing itself is not yet, the production order itself is not yet updated. So if it was scheduled initially to start on the 20th of February. Now it starts on the 21st of February in my schedule. So if I look at this production order from Business Central, so if a colleague from mine would access it from here, she would see this. I think it was the third operation or second operation still on the 20th. I think it was this one on the 20th of February, although it was the third. It was on the 20th of February, although I moved it to the 21st of February. So now if I save this gray dot is gone. So now this means I say this information represents the information I have in Business Central. So now let's look at the third operation again. We updated the routing with the save, and now it's starting on the 21st of February at 8 a.m. like I planned it in the visual scheduler. So this gray dot gives you not only the indication that you changed it, sorry for that, but it gave you also the information that because you changed it, there is currently the data in the visual production scheduler and in Business Central. They are not in sync, and then you can save it, and then we update Business Central automatically, and it all happens within Business Central. So now what happens if I move things? So now first, let's take here the fifth operation, and you see it finishes here early in the late shift, and then the next operation is scheduled to start here next morning. So if this moves in welding, nothing happening to here, then I could move this any further, and then still nothing is happening here. This is because right now I selected in my setup that I will not move any predecessors and successors automatically, because this is we could move successors and predecessors automatically. We could also schedule automatically across multiple production orders line if you link them with reservations. So there are actually a lot of options that you can select also in terms of automatically scheduling successors and predecessors. Here I have switched it off because it is in the essence it's a manual scheduling tool and I want to understand what's happening. So now I moved it here, and then from here I say, okay, right mouse click, scheduled successors, and then this one is pushed out, and then the successor is pushed out, and I don't get any warning because we're not violating the due date. If I would violate the due date by pushing out a successor, so let me do this, I move this to here, and then I say from here, scheduled successors, violating the due date, I would get the indication. So also from here, you, by the way, see on one glance where you're running late. So however, this planned production order here is the least interesting because it's the one that I put right out here, just to show you some of the principles of the VPS. So now let's remember the questions that I had. So one of the questions that I had was like, okay, or the answers that the VPS gives. The one answer that it gives you a quite concrete picture on your production schedule, right? You see which production orders you have, when they are scheduled, when they are due, which of them release, which of them firm planned, and you also see from here which of them are late. The next question was, hey, given that Business Central schedules with infinite capacity, where am I heading into a capacity overload, where I'm having capacity shortfalls? And this is something you not necessarily get a good answer from in the production order view. The production order view gives you an information about the timing and things that are running late. However, if you want to look at capacity utilization and where you're facing an overload, then you could go to the capacity view, where you get the same data, but now, as we saw it before, presented by work center, group work center, and if you have machine centers. And if we look left to the schedule, we see this symbol. And this symbol tells me, hey, there is an overload, and this is on the very top of the schedule, and you have to look downwards. So I can think, okay, I look downwards. Well, I have an overload, and I look downwards. So there is an overload in my machining area. There is no overload in my finishing area, and there is no overload with my subcontractors. So I'm fine here, but I know, okay, within machining, somewhere there is an overload. And then there is no symbol on drilling, no symbol on milling, no symbol on throwing. So these are all fine, properly scheduled. I have a very decent um, uh, sequence of production orders on all those machines, but I see actually, hey, here in welding, I need to have a closer look because I have an overlook in welding. And if I look closer, then I see, okay, the overload actually is on my welding machine number 3. So then what I could do, and here it is quite obvious that the overload is here because I have operations stacked, but what I can also do is, and you learned while watching me, when I can click a triangle, then it either expands or collapses. So I see here a triangle next to welding, so I can click this, and then new information shows, and this is what we call the histogram, the capacity utilization chart, which here is by machine center. So if I double click, I set up my machine center welding 3 with a capacity of 1, efficiency of 100. It has a base unit, it has a shop calendar from the work center. So we take the work time multiplied by capacity, multiplied by efficiency, and then we have the available capacity per day. So here the capacity is 1. And so during work time it's 1, during non-work time is 0. If there is a gray area here, the capacity is utilized, and like you see here, here at the end of this day of the 30th of January, I have an overload. And do you see this is really shown by second. So if I move some of this a little bit out, or if I would move this a little bit out, then and I can then this would I can do this, I can move this a little bit out, then you see this updates here. By the way, you can also see look at the capacity utilization, which is currently the aggregation level is by second. So you see it time-wise exactly. But I could also say on the capacity aggregation, I want to see it by day. Then I can see if I'm how I'm utilizing my daily capacity, and then you see here, okay, on that day I have 900 minutes, and currently I have loaded it with 1066 minutes here. This week is completely empty, and here at the end of the week it's also empty. So, however, if we look now, so what can we do to sort this out? Well, one of the things is I can move it also up and down. So I could move this now to the right, but then you see this would have an impact on its successors in assembly and quality control. But as I have, for example, some idle capacity here on my welding number 2 and also idle capacity on welding 4, I could also change the routing as follows and move it from one machine center to the other. Then it's positioned there, and now you see actually all these symbols are gone because currently I have a schedule with no overloads. And then I can also collapse this again because I don't need it anymore. So with these symbols we give you immediate information on where, in which department, or in which work center group, in which work center, and in which machine center you have overloads. And now let's actually look at the third answer that the VPS can give you. What is the impact if I move a production order? So now somebody told me this production order, which is on milling 1, should not start on, or we cannot start it on the 20, or this operation, we cannot start it on the 24th of January, but we should start it on the 25th, maybe due to whatever, an enhanced quality control after we finish the drilling, because this is very critical material, or because we achieve additional material that we then need for the milling, whatever. So somebody tells us this should run later. So first of all, I can move the production order here to the next day to give it a new timing. And then, like I did before, I can say schedule the successors. And now you see this production order has a lot of operation downstream. So after milling, it goes to my turning machine, then it goes into welding, then it goes to quality control, and so on and so forth. So if I'm scheduling the successors now from here, this should have downstream effects. And now I'm scheduling the successors, and boom, you see it's not critical here on my turning machine. It is okay on welding, but now I have these information that with this, I will be overloading my assembly department, I will be overloading my quality control work center. So by the way, here I'm planning just on work center level. I don't have machine centers, which is what you can do in Business Central and which you can do in the VPS. So I've set this up here, like my assembly work center is set up with a capacity of 4, efficiency of 100, and then shop calendar 1, which is 1 shift. So I have basically the capacity, and let's look at this again, the capacity of 1920 minutes per day. And we see that here we are partly overloading it by a bit. And now I would either have to move this here to the next day, or see if I could change some of these. So you see, we are following the Business Central scheduling logic. We do not prevent that machine centers are overloaded. So also here we schedule, when we move successors, when we move operations, we schedule with infinite capacity, like Business Central does. However, we show you visually, hey, there is an overload in your schedule, and I don't see an overload in machining, but I see it in finishing. And then I can say, okay, well, this is just a bit overload on that day. right? It's 100 minutes, so it's less than 2 hours. I have on average 4 workers here, so it's half an hour per worker. I leave the schedule like this. I don't mind. These guys will get it done. They will work on the things they have a bit faster. And if this is just 100 minutes and I have a capacity of 4, so 4 workers, okay, let's do it. Let's leave it like this, and then I could move on and see which conflict I got on quality control, and then I can maybe sense that this is trickier, and also I don't want the guys to rush on this because quality control is important. Then I can select this. I see the due date for this production order is actually here, so it will do my delivery time. No harm if I move this to here and then have capacity fully or better not exceeded here. I'm keeping my delivery date, and this is just moved here a bit. So this is an introduction into the Visual Production Scheduler VPS for Business Central. As said, the purpose of the presentation was to give you an idea of what the product can do with the capacity view that I'm in right now and with the production order view that we saw earlier. The VPS can do much more. There are much more functionalities, but they are not part of this introductory webinar. I just wanted to give you an impression, an idea of what the product can do for you. And as said, we will run webinars on more advanced topics over the next couple of weeks. But for an introduction, I think this was enough to give you an impression on the VPS features. And if you have any question, then please ask them either by sending me an email or by putting them into the chat box here. And then we will answer them right away after the webinar, or connect with me on LinkedIn and send the question there. Independent what you do to reach us and to reach me, you will get an answer. And again, I would be pleased also if you reach out to become a guest to the Business Central Manufacturing Show. With this, thank you for being my guest today for this webinar. Again, please get in contact, reach out to me. I'm really happy to work with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in one of our next webinars. Thank you very much for your attention today. Stay safe and healthy. See you soon. Bye-bye.